Hello, welcome to SquishiVision, where I've just finished watching Andor. Nobody's listening, like nobody's listening to this stream. Am I right? Hey, self-burn. This is my meet. Harris. This is my meet reaction to the episode. I'm not gonna kind of go into like Easter eggs or details, just because my immediate gut reaction. It's the second episode. Andor's stuck in the prison, but things are ramping up, in ways which we're not immediately aware of, but we're kind of the same level of confusion and uncertainty the prisoners are feeling. Another day, another shift, for several times, but certain things go. It's almost like very horror-esque in that things are going wrong, but it's not clear why. And it could easily be like a horror film, like like lights are randomly turning off. There's like a whispers of something happening in the far side of the compound, but we're not entirely sure what's happening in the far side of the compound. But that something's happening, but the murmurs are whispering. People are getting very kind of suspicious. Katie, I don't know why you're here. You don't even watch Andor. Yeah, and so yeah, that's all happening. Andor's planning things. He's screwing up into his corner and like knocking down bits of panels and like, messing with. He seems to be soaring through something. Olaf is getting ill, and I like how they kind of hinted that in the last episode because he fumbled a bit at the place, and then we see him kind of deteriorate, and it's kind of a tragedy because he was only like 40 shifts, which apparently isn't that long a time away from being released. But then we get the reveal like what was basically going wrong is that they decided they're not releasing prisoners. They just let someone go and then put them back in another floor, which I'm not sure how that was meant to ever work long term, because I don't know how that was ever going to be kept a secret. Like they were like all about how just keeping it all hush hush, but surely that'd be like literally the first thing people that people would say would be, I am here from the floor, and that would like completely break like any sense of people being like compliant. I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, heck, it was well acted. The whole entire thing was well acted. Just everyone being very kind of at each other's necks. I mean, Andy Serkis is always a win, and like he's had a little arc in this episode where he was like very kind of drill sergeant-y, and there's a point where he kind of freaks out and punches someone, and then he like regains himself, but you can still see that look in his eyes, which Andy Serkis does very, very well. And then towards the end, he's like, you know, he gives the answers that he needs for his plan to kind of escape. And I mean, yeah, I think it's like I saw actually someone compared this setting of this to another film, with the whole, you know, white walls, white clothes, everything kind of being very bright in your face. Gotta drive anyone crazy. And I guess speaking of driving people crazy, we segue over to the interrogation with Bix, which is quite horrifying. They basically they have this like, you know, basically Nazi doctor discuss with like clear clear fascination of this kind of form of torture where they take a recording of a dying race, which has like a very kind of where the audio of their distress is like it invokes distress in the person who hears it, and they kind of refine it to its like most damaging essence, essentially the screams of children dying, and then force someone to listen to this, and like they obviously do the obvious thing, but it's not any less kind of terrifying, where they get a very kind of narrow angle lens right near to someone's face, to Vix's face as she starts screaming out, and it's yeah, it's not pleasant. Like we're seeing like the brutal areas, like this is where I'm not gonna say any nuances dropping, but clearly we're getting into like these guys are definitely the bad guys, and like I saw the actor for like this character point out, but you're meant to kind of sympathize with at the beginning of being a working professional woman in a room full of men, and oh, you relate to her, like she's having to struggle with all these kind of uphill battles, and then you realize, no wait, she's a fascist. She isn't. This isn't a struggle you're meant to be kind of sympathetic for, and she becomes more and more kind of fascist through and through. That being said, I did like this scene. Well, no, actually, I didn't like it, but I felt very uncomfortable. But I think that was the point. The scene where clearly Cyril has latched onto the ISB supervisor as a kind of. He put her on a pedestal, and he's basically worshipping her, and she's like entirely disgusted by his behavior. It's a random thing to throw in, but like it's relatable. I mean, not to me, but I've never, but I imagine it's relatable to a lot of people. I mean, I guess it's slightly odd that to put this kind of relatable sympathetic moment into the thing for her, but it just shows, I guess, the disgust you feel is the kind of, it's a commentary on the kind of fanaticism of certain people like Cyril's meant to be representing. Oh, there goes a firework. And then we get the reveal that Val is Mon Mothma's cousin, and so they have a kind of bit. So Mon Mothma's in the Senate, and interestingly, like her speech is actually kind of getting some traction. Not like people are talking over her, but not everyone's against her. Some people are shouting in support of her. So that's very interesting, very nuanced. But she's still exhausted by the whole thing, and she goes home, and Val's there, and they kind of whisper about politics. And it's kind of interesting. We're basically seeing like the family dynamic. We've got one person who's using their wealth to kind of help, but in a very kind of hidden way. Well, they're both doing it in a hidden way, but she's still doing. She put the politics thing, while Val's obviously like a proper terrorist who's pretending to be a rich person. So that was interesting kind of dynamic between them, and interesting kind of like they're obviously very supportive of each other, but they're coming at it multiple angles. What the show is doing so very well is like just showing the different kind of angles that you approach revolution from, and how it's not simple, because people are real people, and like we all have our kind of ideals and our perspectives and our comforts, and what we're willing to give up, and what we're trapped in, and what internal battles we have to fight, and what we think are the best ways to achieve goals. And it's so great how nuanced the show is being about it all. Yeah, so it's an episode where not much happens, but it's fine. Like we breathe on kind of the moments. We see people have small moments, like the fact that the Dedra's kind of assistant comes to her rescue, but not like a flashy over the top way, like it's not drawn to, but he kind of helps, like almost like a legal like a attorney assistant, legal assistant, whatever this assistants are called in like law shows. Basically comes forward like the extra point that she needs to kind of convince people of things, and that's like his moment in the show. But like you can extrapolate a kind of backstory behind that. What else? Wasn't much in terms of like new sets or new kind of giant set pieces. It was all in familiar areas, but developing the story, and everyone's just like really acting. It's really compelling, and I'm definitely engaged in it. I've got work now at 8:15. Yay for me, working from home, doing some project stuff. So I'm gonna wrap this up fairly quick. And I don't know how many episodes into the series that we are. That was episode 9 out of 12. So we start the final trilogy of the series next episode. So presumably we're building up to a massive jailbreak. It's actually surprising how long Andor's been in prison. Because like we kind of actually taken him out of the. That's actually the interesting thing, and I don't know if it's criticism or not, but like until he was captured, Andor was playing a role in this kind of bringing things together. Like he was involved in the Aldani mission, which was if we're based, if from what we've established in the show, quite a pivotal victory that helps spark the rebellion's kind of consolidation into an organized force. But then as soon as that happens, he gets basically written out into his own thing, and it's interesting to see if this experience changes him as a person at all or not, or if it changes anything else, if his prison break changes anything else. That's what I'm interested about, because at the moment, as world building goes, and I guess it shouldn't necessarily have to be a world building thing. It could just literally be about Andor. But as a world building thing goes, all that's to be done by the auxiliary characters. It's like different people. It's like, is this show really? Should this show really be called Andor? Or should it, like, I don't know, be called Rebellion? And Andor's just one of the stories in it, like the driving force story. But is he really the main thing? I wonder if that's an alternative way it could have gone about this. Something to think about. A good point to end on. Before I go to my work, they dropped the trailer, the actual trailer, not the teaser, the actual trailer for Avatar 2. I guess we're going to watch that and see what we make of Avatar, like an Avatar film, because this is hopefully, the trailers usually drops more about the plot. So, stay tuned for that. I'm going to get it all streamed up and ready to go in a couple of seconds, well, a couple of minutes.